Hello, this is Jimmy Pablo on the Orlock 425 channel. This is another talking discussion, episode 22. And what I'm going to be playing while I'm talking about the situation here, Fortnite. It's basically the season, chapter 3, season 2, I believe. And what I'm going to be calling this episode for today is, of course, Minecraft update patching checks that I wanted to discuss because if you haven't seen my recent Minecraft problem with the 1.1830, they decided to throw in a new patch that was going to add some new content, but in the result, well, the theme I'm about to say that are responsible for causing this problem is Mojang Studios, which now for this one I'm not going to be discussing the problem because in this one I'm going to be talking about what happens when you don't check your patches right and you end up causing an issue that leads to probably making other platforms worse since it's all together and it's not all like cross play. So when that happens, it starts to become more of a one something gets fixed in one side, the other platform gets messed up on the others, and so on and so on. So in this episode 22, I wanted to talk about basically how Mojang really needs to have their Minecraft patches check all the time when it involves updates. So the recent one that they released was 5 days ago, which was on May 1st, 2022, which was 1.1831, which fixed my situation, and I'm about to show you right now. As you could see, my Minecraft is a little bit fixed. You could see everything's more opened, including my end station, or Sebastopol, you may call it. It's not really in fixed condition, but it is more like a way that you can now be able to play it. And now I'm about to hop back to the game that I'm playing. But I wanted to show you quick how it should be looking like instead of that version, which was completely glitched out and you couldn't even see anything. Because I wasn't able to see nothing, and that's why I had to show that little clip thing. The one that they just recently patched and I'm about to view it right now is right here. You could tell that the version is basically now patched up, and it involves the following changes, which introduces the for now they have because there've been reports of bug spectator mode, which had some issues, and they probably we're now focusing on looking at relating to those bugs. But the fixes are mostly towards right here where the gameplay would crash. You have another one where some were experiencing XP interferences, and then you have right here teleporting entities that are upload that no longer deletes the item. That happened a lot. And then you had issues where fixed screen returning to black when rotating in RDX worlds. That happened a lot. Another one was right here where textures appeared blocking that were distorted while playing on Android devices. That happened a lot. Fixing water and texture flows did not appear correctly on iOS devices. And then you got another one, hatches and less power mobile devices, which there is a lot of those. Mods can no longer spawn on buttons. They actually did that, so you can tell in each of these fixes they're actually changing a lot of stuff. And I don't know any other worlds were having issues, but they looked at the results of that. And you could see right here an issue that prevented worlds from being opened after updating to the new version. Yes, that something like that was happening. Mine's I couldn't even play it at all. It would not work for some reason. Sound music achievements now unlock requirements are meant. Fixes issues on the marketplace that now open on Nintendo Switch. So Nintendo Switch people were having that, along with fixes on the loading screens that purchases in the marketplaces and so on. So that's what they fixed in number 1. So now everything looks a little bit different. As you could tell, this happens a lot in gaming. It does. And when developers make a mistake or when something doesn't look right, you can tell that there is sometimes going to be issues or problems when it comes to when making the game, that something goes apparently wrong after an update or a patch. So that's why I wanted to discuss this issue, is because sometimes when you don't look at these situations at hand, when you end up making a wrong attempt in order to fix one issue, that's happened in Cyberpunk. And Cyberpunk fixed one issue, another problem ended up making it worse. And Angry Joe himself was actually talking about that you have to look out for these, because this really damages the game. And I thought my world was done for, because I built so much passion in and did everything I can to make it work. Because I went with the bedrock just so I can able to get all these new items to make the world expand, since there's no boundaries. It was expand more like larger, and I did so much passion just to make it happen. And for that to go on was really messed up my thing. However, it did include the warden, so now the warden is in there. However, I still think that there's still a lot that needs to be looked at, because if they're gonna continue releasing patches, this is where it worries me that within another patch can create the same issues. That's what they have to be in a lookout. Even how much stuff they can introduce, which is fixing textures, the waters, the sound, even making some freezing points to that causes crash during gameplay to be fixed. Some new problem can start occurring, so it's not just only on the PC side. It also can happen on the other devices such as iOS, Androids, to maybe consoles as well. Even Nintendo Switches are another ones that can also happen. And the new one, called the Nintendo Direct, is one that can probably, when they start putting it on that one, could start having issues similar like Nintendo Switch is having. Just Mojang Studios has to be careful when you're updating stuff. You can't just be like deciding to be like, hey, let's make this patch that can fix this on Nintendo Switch and make them happier, to see if it can get their attention, or if we make some sort of adjustment that can finally fix this problem. And in doing so, you make some other platforms worse, since it's not separate. Because I seen in Minecraft how each one were crossplay platform, but yet all their games were in separate devices. You have separate ones, they're not linked to one profile only, because before Fortnite players were able to play crossplay platform, we were all playing on separate consoles and separate things. There was not a lot of people online, so they made it crossplay platform with PC and Xbox. However, PlayStation did not want to get involved in this. So that's what got a lot of Fortnite players pissed, because they didn't have a lot of players they were able to play with. So thank goodness Epic was able to make an agreement to pay PlayStation in order to get a crossplay going. So now the PlayStation players can play with the Xbox and PC side. But here's what I'm trying to say out of all of this. They didn't have their game linked into one, because if they do it on one and they try to do some fix on one platform, if they're all linked into the same game within the same version on different devices and not in separate, it can cause sometimes what you call one problem after another, where you fix one and it starts leading an issue towards another. And since it's not in different platforms, and what I mean about different platforms, the game being like a different version between each other. Like you have one version that symbolizes a console, and then you have another version that symbolizes PC. And if you just call it, just instead of calling it one console, you just call it just one title only, that look identical to each other, that they're all linked, then yes, that can cause issues. Where you have two different titles, they say this is titled this and this is titled that, then yeah, that's when you know they're in separate different versions, and yet they can do crossplay with another. That's when you know that if you fix on one device, it doesn't affect the other, because they're separate. So that's how Minecraft happened. When they were fixing that stuff and doing that patch, they didn't realize that other platforms could be affected by this, so they had to reroute and see what was the issue, so they can do it for all platforms once again. And it does suck when that happens, because I was left for like at least 6 to 5 days without any type of working map or whatsoever. Because when they released that patch, I was unable to build, I was unable to work, so I had to abandon all my projects and stuff just so I can able to find out what was going on. And thank goodness I wasn't the only one having this problem. So that's when they decided to release this patch, and that's what fixed it up. But that's what makes me worried the most likely. And I have to say this again. When you're doing patches and when you're updating stuff, you're always going to have some sort of problem. So they have to be aware that just in case for backup, they should probably make sure that if something goes wrong on the other person end, they test it out first. That's why you have a testing place. You can test out the patch somewhere with other devices to ensure that if this problem happens, it can be notified through their testing results to know that this patch will not work and they need to reroute this, need to refix this. Because if they don't do that, results is something like in this case where every other platform was having the same issues on their old world maps that led to this issue. To prevent something like this happening again, I think testing must commence in order to release a patch for now on if the Mojang wants to continue making this happen. If they cannot do a testing, that's why this type of scenario can repeat, and that's what bothers me the most as well. You don't want something to just interrupt players' gameplay or interrupt their building for something that they have to wait days and days just so this thing can be fixed, because it really does just make players angry, and it made me angry as well, just because they didn't do something that they didn't do a test or some sort of like check to make sure that if this patch is accurate, that it can be left alone and put into place for many of these platforms. But it's also to be sure that if they were going to make a patch, that they're not going to do something that results in failure, because sometimes patch can fail on many platforms and can result in a big right shutdown where they'll have no choice but to do a downgrade in order to unfix that new thing that they created. It's one of the things that you have to be careful when you're doing updates, including, as much as I want to say this, seeds are old and new mixed up in this Bedrock edition. There's nothing that's gonna stay new. There's all mixed up, and once in a while something bad could happen if you're not careful when you're developing something in the software device. Something can go wrong. So the ones that you always have to ensure and always have to look out for is to make a little bit more sense. Don't do something that results in putting seeds at risk or putting players to wait days because of an update that ruined something that they were supposed to do, like that may have created a bug in a scenario, an example where this bug just end up ruining your gameplay or ruining your map, that you cannot understand why it was there in the first place. All you know that an update happened and this came in the result of it, when all they could have done is just made a check, did some testing, and to ensure that everything will be fit and fine. It's not just devices they have to check too. There's many of them. So it's not going to be an easy test, but I think with many devices such as whatever they can rent or have other companies to review their thing, I think it could be a sort of a good test to ensure that it's not going to have an interference when they patch this up or when they update something new to the game. Because every game has a way that works on their codes, and sometimes when you don't have them separate while you're fixing this, one code can end up messing up the other, and that's how it links to other ones in the result. That's why it's very important that if we're gonna, as a community of gamers, if we're gonna continue playing this game, we need to put trust to the developers that they will make sure that if something like this were to incur that they get on top of it right away, and that after testing it out, if it does occur, that they get notified right away from individuals. Because the way that I had me doing this form, it was so bad. I did not enjoy it. This form felt like a chore where I had to do my email, do my description of what was the send thumbnails of images just from that problem. And it was so hard to find the category I want because it was within the game, not just through downloads. So I had to just select which one that felt appropriate rather than just being simple and easy so they can be direct for the messenger. And then they have a site which I showed you from the description, which now is resolved. They have a site that's called the Broken Patch, and it's basically their site of putting forms of issues that if you're reporting any bugs within your game, that you could able to post it right there, and Moj will get noticed if it has so many votes. It's cool too, but again, it's better to go for more direct, because if they're going through something like this, then you could tell it's been resolved already. It's really gonna be harder to communicate. Even though there's so many people who have the same issues, it gets really difficult to communicate like that, and that's what kind of scares me a bit. I'm like, if they're gonna do it the right way, I think first they should have. I know this option could still be available, but it should be more of an option of, if there's more than one person having this, then yeah, people can share their issues right here and they can take notice right away. But most importantly, it should be first responded to in single individuals before, if it is becoming more of a problem, then they should actually get them to be sent like an automatic place where how many people are having this issue. Because for me, I had to vote for this because I already sent my images for the site that I said the broken patch that have it, and I already send them the images to share with the group that were having this, and they actually saw the images from themselves, so they were able to look at that. Still, it would be easier to just go through individually by individual person, so if there's more than one person, then they know off the bat something doesn't feel right. And instead of having us as persons who want to create this, they should recognize this and then just post it. Is anyone having a broken this and this and that? Because you could do the option too for the gamer to create a post within the problem that they don't know. But if more than one people are having the same problem, they should be able to make something like this themselves, so that way people can just vote or be a part of that, so they can see how many that are they that's going on. It's good to communicate with the people who are playing the game, who own it, so it's not just only one individual at a time. It's like you can actually see the group from their own eyes. I know most of the ones that are hearing this right now are probably confused. I'm mostly saying that because how they had me fill out this form was just complicated. I just did not like it when they could have just made simple and easy. And if there's more than one person like me who are having the same problem, then they can just create this form themselves. That's what I mean. Because it had to take an individual to create this in order for them to identify it, rather than them posting something that similar to the problem where people can just fill it out of how many individuals they are with this issue. And that's what got me really upset about it. So again, I really did not want to explain too much. I did wanted to talk about why it's good to do checkups and good to make sure that these patches go right, because these problems could happen. And the example of that led to really players leaving the game entirely was Cyberpunk at launch. It was really bad. And I'm glad that, other games like 343 and EA learned from their mistakes not to do that. DICE didn't learn, and they end up messing their game at launch, and the result, which Battlefield 2024 or 2054, something like that, was really bad to the point where gamers just couldn't play it and they left immediately. Most of them wanted their refunds for the beta test. It was a disaster, and they had to make a meeting telling everyone how bad their launch game was, and no, they messed up. They should never have done that, and led to their game sales going down. It was so bad that they had to put most of their games on Game Pass, because that's how really out of control it became. I'm sure don't want to play it. I only play the other ones like World War II or World War One because you can have this. At least those games work and they feel accurate to just fight in the World War. It's not necessarily in the World War since their missions are not a lot. They should have been put a lot, but they aren't. But at least you can actually fight in like being similar to something like fighting alongside players, and that's what I always do all the time. But that's what I wanted to say for this episode. I'm glad that they fixed it now, but I'm still worried that in the future that this can happen again. So we just got to be more aware now and more like looking out for this, because anytime something bad can happen, Moji's got to come more prepared. That's all I want to say. If they don't come prepared, the result is gonna be really like making gamers like me angry who actually play the game and knowing that it can't play it because of this bug or this glitch, this bad service that doesn't necessarily working because of that issue. It's really harming the game than ever towards the audience who actually play it, rather than, and mostly the consumers as well, not just a game but consumers who actually play it. They'll actually won't play it again if this continues to go on. That's why developers are must do checks to ensure, and test and checks to ensure there is no issues or problem whatsoever. And that's about it. So thank you again so much for watching this talking discussion. Be sure to leave anything down in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more content coming, and I'll see you on another video from Zero Pow Jimmy Pablo. Bye bye.